Well, it's Monday, and the Republic hasn't totally been burned down yet. So I guess we'll dive into the news, even though there's more news than what we can get to in one day. But we will talk today on the Revealed Report about how Chicago police officers were told to stand down while federal ICE agents were being attacked in the streets. We'll also talk about the legal battle between Chicago as well as the state of Illinois against the President of the United States, because they say that he does not have the legal authority to issue the national troops to crack down on the lawlessness in Portland and Chicago. We'll give you our thoughts concerning that matter. We'll also talk about the 20-point plan that Trump has to secure peace in Gaza, as well as our commentary and our predictions. Well, we have a lot to get into. Welcome back to the Revealed Report. I'm your host, John Wilson. Let's get into it. If you like the content of today's episode and you would like to help further our mission, do us a favor, smash the subscribe button or gently tap it. It all works the same. Give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, and share us with somebody else. Thank you for your support. On today's Reveal Report, before we get into all the chaos and madness that's trying to destroy our republic, we first of all want to give you a great review that we received concerning the book, The Final Flame, from Amanda in Arkansas. I quote, "I have no questions or concerns regarding my order, which was received promptly on Wednesday. I am writing instead to offer a strong commendation for the book. I finished reading it today and was profoundly moved by the narrative. The writing is so powerful that it made the events incredibly vivid and immersive. Aside from the Bible, this is, without question, the best book I have ever encountered. Thank you for producing such a remarkable work. I look forward to sharing its title with others." End quote. Well, thank you so much, Amanda from Arkansas. We are so humbled and honored and blessed that it was such a blessing to you. And I'm just amazed that you would put it on such a high level as that. I pray that it will be a blessing to many others. Thank you for purchasing the book. Thank you for reading it. And thank you for leaving us that kind review. God bless you for it. Thank you so very much. If you have not purchased your copy of The Final Flame, you can get it on Amazon, The Final Flame by John R. Wilson III. Or if you want a signed edition of the book, you can email us at revealedpublications@gmail.com, and we'll give you the details on how you can get a signed edition of The Final Flame. Let me just give you the back blurb if you're not aware of this book. It's a novel mystery thriller with truth packed into it. What happens when the fire that once gave light to a nation threatens to burn it down? In The Final Flame, a fractured America teeters on the edge of collapse, its culture compromised, its faith ridiculed, and its freedoms under siege. Amid the chaos, two unlikely souls are drawn together in a race against time. As cities burn and institutions crumble, they uncover a trail of secrets buried beneath decades of deception. Secrets that could ignite either the spark of restoration or the blaze of total ruin. This high-stakes thriller weaves together action, mystery, and a subtle thread of romance while challenging readers to ask, what are we willing to lose before we finally wake up? If you're drawn to pulse-pounding stories grounded in conviction, The Final Flame will grip you from page one and won't let go until the smoke clears. Well, speaking about the chaos that can try to burn down a republic, let's talk about the lawlessness that's taking place in Portland and especially in Chicago right now. In Chicago, the police officers were told to stand down, and some of them are enraged by this and leaked this information out. But the police officers were told to stand down while federal ICE agents were being assaulted and attacked in the streets. And the reason for this is because what we've been telling you on the Revealed Report ever since the second episode that was ever produced, that the radical left has no problem with lawlessness in the streets. And honestly, they hate our country, and they want to enact a color revolution against our nation. You see, there's very few old school Democrats, and usually the ones that are old school Democrats are cowards, and they begin to bend under the pressure of the radical left. They are now demon rats. They really are. They hate our country. They want to tear our country down. These are the people that want to get rid of God and the Bible and replace it with humanism. They don't want "in God we trust." They want you to trust in government. They hate the founding principles of our nation. They hate the certain inalienable rights that are endowed to us by our Creator God. They hate the idea that government is established to protect those rights, because all the way back to the father of digressivism, Woodrow Wilson, he mocked Thomas Jefferson. He mocked the individual rights that are endowed to us by our Creator God. Sadly, he was the son of a Presbyterian preacher that began to accept Darwin's theories of evolution, and he believed that the very Constitution should evolve as well, and that we should not have individual rights, but rather we need big government. We need a big, powerful government, because big government is a good thing. And so he began to do exactly what Benjamin Franklin was scared of at the very founding of the Constitution. And that was that he would use the Supreme Court justices to begin to centralize the power back to the federal government, taking the power out of the state representatives that represent the people and centralizing it back to the federal government. He would also put together the Federal Reserve, and then he would also put together the federal tax system, as we see. He also brought together the League of Nations. He wanted to take over in a globalized agenda, and he wanted to do it by changing the very founding principles of America. The digressive movement has always been doing this. They are still doing this today. The truth of the matter is they would love nothing more to enact a color revolution against our nation, to flip it inside out. And how do they do that? They get politicians to lie to us at the top while they heat things up in the streets, so that there's a top-down, bottom-up approach to flip the system inside out. The truth of the matter is, the radical left, they don't care about the loss of life or lives being hurt, regardless if it's the citizens, if it's federal agents, or anybody. If you oppose them, they do not care if you get harmed, because they only value the individual as long as it fits into the collective whole, as long as you are good for the collective mission. When you are no good to the collective, they'll discard you because they no longer value you. They're not like us who value individuals. You see, God values individual to the point he knows your name, and he knows how many number of hairs is on your head, and he does want you to come into a collective body of Christ, but he also cares about you as an individual. We also believe in government. We also believe in assimilation into our country to become one people under God. However, the radical left, they want to replace all of that. They want to replace God with man. They want to replace the founding principles of America and individual freedom with the Marxist collectivist ideology. And they can call themselves democratic socialists, but all that means is it's a new rebranding of Marxism. You know, even under Barack Hussein, he had somebody in his administration that believed in the Fabian Society's idea that your value decreases after the age of 75 because you're not pulling for the collective whole, and therefore we should not be using medical resources to try to prop up your life because you're not pulling for the collective whole anymore. That's why they have no problem with murdering the unborn, because the unborn can't work. They can't pull for the collective whole. They are collectivists. And so they hate our nation because our nation was built on the principles of God and individual rights, and they would love nothing more than to get rid of that. And so you find that in Chicago, they were telling the police to stand down and allow these criminals in the streets to assault and to attack the ICE agents who are trying to secure our border. They're trying to keep law and order in our nation. You see, the radical left was allowing illegals to flood into our country and not even have to assimilate to the principles of the United States of America. It didn't matter if they loved the Constitution. It didn't matter if they loved the Bill of Rights. It didn't matter if they loved the traditions of America. There was no assimilation because they wanted to flood the system so that it drowns our traditions out. They wanted to replace July 4th Independence Day with Juneteenth. They wanted to replace the American flag with the Pride Progress flag. They want to replace Columbus Day with Indigenous People Day, even though they won't tell you that the Native Americans also had slaves, and after white Americans died by the bullet of other white Americans, sometimes their own own family members to win the war of the Civil War, we as white Americans, our nation, went and negotiated with the indigenous Native Americans so that they would get rid of their slaves. They won't tell you that in the history books because all they're trying to do is lie to you, take history by sound bites and revise our history, American history revisionists that tried to tell us we were never built on Christianity, or to demonize it and call us white Christian nationalists and demonize us, taking history by sound bites because they want to destroy the United States of America. They want to destroy the Bible. They want to destroy the principles of holiness and righteousness, godly principles. And they especially don't want it to be exercised in any form of politics or any institution or any education system. They hate our nation. They are no longer Democrats as far as I'm concerned. They're demon rats, and they're lurking as round the corners trying to destroy our nation every which way they can. And they lie to us over and over again. They won't just come out and tell us what they believe in because they can't, because the American people doesn't want their ideas. So they have to deceive the people. At least we come out and tell you exactly what we believe. And so they're allowing lawlessness in the streets. We see it in Portland. It's out of control. We see it in Chicago. It's out of control. And the President of the United States told us that he was going to secure our borders so we don't have more Lake and Rileys that are being brutally attacked. And when her name is even mentioned and honors being given to her and her family, those demon rats can't even stand up to honor the family of Lake and Riley because they don't care about the individual if it doesn't fit into their collective mission. And so President Trump said he was going to secure the borders, and he is doing that with these federal ICE agents. And now even the criminals in the street are putting bounties on the heads of ICE agents. And instead of ICE agents being protected by the Democrats, the radical left instead is telling the police officers in Chicago to stand down, don't protect them, let them be out there, let them get harmed, let them get killed. It doesn't matter to them because their mission is more valuable than human life. And this mission is to tear down our nation. These are the same ones that got offended when at the very statement of MAGA, Make America Great Again. America was never great. How can you say that? This is a horrible nation. Remember Barack Hussein, who thought that he should go out and apologize to everybody else because of America? They hate our nation. They want to tear our nation down. They don't like us. They would love nothing more than run us out of every aspect of our society. Anybody remember the COVID-19 madness? They came and shuttered the doors of our churches. They also came and they closed down middle-class businesses. But here is the strange phenomenon of the radical left. They're not just Marxists anymore. They're Marxists and fascism blended together. And by the way, fascism was not a far-right thing. Adolf Hitler was part of the National Socialists. Okay, he believed in socialism at a national level. That was a leftist ideology. And then you had the globalists, Lenin and Mao. They were globalists. But this strange phenomenon of the radical left is they're taking Marxist globalist ideology with fascistic ideology, and they want a big Leviathan government so that they can merge corporations and the government together, a public-private partnership, to exercise their tyranny on the people and to get rid of your certain inalienable rights. They think that they can take care of you from cradle to grave. But let me quote former President Ronald Reagan. Some of the most fearful words you should hear, and I paraphrase, is that we're here for you and we're the government. Those are some of the most fearful words. Our forefathers understood that a limited government was necessary because men are not angels. Quoting James Madison, men are not angels. We have a mixture of good and evil in us, and therefore we need limited government so we do not infringe upon the rights of another. However, a big government becomes tyrannical and it becomes an evil Leviathan in itself. So President Trump understands this, but he also understands to have a nation that still has our freedoms and liberties, we must protect our borders. We cannot allow lawlessness and fentanyl and all of that to pour in. We also have to secure our nation from the threat of terrorism, because anybody remember 9/11 when radical jihadists hijacked airplanes and began to run them into the Twin Towers? We can never afford for that to happen again. So we need a president that will secure the borders of the United States. We must be a nation built on law and order. But the radical left is lawless at its very roots and its very core, because there's great marketing with lawlessness. It helps further their mission. And so we find, instead of protecting federal ICE agents and the citizens of their own cities, they would rather fight against the one that's trying to bring America back to its founding principles. And so now President Trump says, okay, if you're not going to do your job, because J.B. Pritzker is even calling off the National Guards, he's saying, okay, if you're not going to do your job, then we're going to send in federal troops to make sure that our cities are protected and our ICE agents are not being brutally assaulted. We're going to protect those cities that you're not protecting. And so what does J.B. Pritzker, what does Chicago and the state of Illinois do? They try to slap lawsuits on President Trump and say he does not have the constitutional legal authority to issue the federal troops to try to preserve law and order inside of these cities, inside of these states. And what they're going to quote is this 1878 Posse Comitatus Act, which prevents federal troops from being used on ordinary citizens, which is true. However, they will not tell you this unless they're wanting to use it against those January 6th insurrectionists, the darkest day in American history, which they spin the narrative on that as well. They want to use the Insurrection Act against, January 6th, but they won't tell you that the Insurrection Act does allow the president to deploy federal troops to suppress insurrection, domestic violence, or rebellion in certain narrow circumstances. For example, when state authorities cannot or will not enforce the law. Therefore, I support the President of the United States issuing federal troops into these lawless cities to make sure the citizens of these cities are protected and to make sure that our federal ICE agents are protected. Because there is an insurrection going on. The radical left wants to destroy our nation inside out. That's why they have no problem with illegal migration and fentanyl pouring across the border. They have no worry or concern about terrorists coming into our country because they have the same mission as the radical left. Death to America and death to Israel. Just uproot the system from within. And so there is a constant insurrection from the radical left. They want to destroy the system from the inside. Also, we find that there is domestic violence taking place. Antifa are domestic terrorists. There are domestic terrorists in the streets that are trying to uproot the system from within. There is domestic violence, and there is outright rebellion from J.B. Pritzker, from in Portland, in Chicago, in Oregon, in Illinois. There is outright rebellion to protect the citizens of that state and those cities. There's outright rebellion. J.B. Pritzker is calling off the National Guards. He's allowing the lawlessness in the street. Chicago is calling the police officers of Chicago and telling them to stand down. There's outright rebellion. And therefore, the Insurrection Act should be enacted. Also, President Trump is using this because when the federal agents that go in there and they are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, cracking down on border control, when they are assaulted, then he's able to use that to send in the troops to crack down on crime and do exactly what J.B. Pritzker should be doing in the state of Illinois, who is absolutely wrecking and ruining our state. When there are many good conservative, Bible-believing, God-fearing, constitutional patriots in our state of Illinois that love the truth, and yet they, because of the gerrymandering that's happening with J.B. Pritzker and the radical left, those radical leftists keep winning in the state of Illinois, keep making it a blue state of just absolute crazy lawlessness, as well as taxing us to death. And so they want to say, because of the 1878 Posse Comitatus Act, that the president doesn't have the right, and they're going to slap lawsuits on him. They're going to lose because he can use the Insurrection Act, because there is an insurrection taking place. There is domestic violence, and there is outright rebellion. And so I support the President of the United States doing exactly what J.B. Pritzker should be doing, what they should be doing in Portland, but they're not. And so they're leaving the President with no other option but to send in troops to protect the United States of America, because we are to be protected from foreign and domestic threats. foreign and domestic threats that want to tear down our country, and they want to infringe upon the rights of the citizens, the law-abiding citizens. The Constitution was not to protect illegal activity. It was not to protect criminals. It was to protect the law-abiding citizens, that they would not have their rights infringed upon. The only thing that protects a possible criminal is the right to a fair and speedy trial. That we shouldn't have a two-tier justice system. But by the way, the radical left is tearing that up too. They love a two-tier justice system. What do you think all the money from George Soros's organizations is doing when they're buying off these judges? It's a two-tier justice system. That's why they'll bail out the summer of love rioters. As CNN says, it's mostly peaceful protesting. They'll bail them out while they'll throw the book at anybody who was down at the Capitol on January 6th. They love two-tier justice because they're full of hypocrisy, because they hate our nation. They can't just tell you what they believe. They have to lie to you, because if you actually know what they believe, you won't buy into it. So they lie to you over and over again. Now, migrating from that, Trump's 20-point peace at Gaza plan. I'm going to give you the 20 points. I'm going to give you my commentary on it. Now, all of this can change by the time this actually becomes available to the general public, this episode. Number 1, immediate ceasefire. All hostilities are to stop. Both Israel and Hamas freeze positions where they stand, ending airstrikes and shelling. Number 2, return of hostages. Within 72 hours of Israel accepting the plan, all Israeli hostages, alive or deceased, must be released by Hamas. And the president is saying, move quickly, do it fast. If you don't, Israel's at the door of Gaza, and we're going to let them, with the aiding of other ones right around that doesn't want Hamas, that the rest of the Arab world that doesn't want Hamas, is, with their help, that Israel's going to be able to finish off the job. And so they better release the hostages, or all Hades or Gehenna, whatever Greek word you want to use for hell, will be paid. Number 3, prisoner exchange. Israel will release roughly 250 prisoners serving life sentences, plus around 1,700 Gazans detained since October 7th, primarily women and minors. There's a few things in here I don't fully agree with and I don't fully like, but overall I think this is incredible, and he's got to broker a deal somehow. Number 4, exchange of remains. For each deceased Israeli hostage return, Israel will release the remains of 15 Gazans. Number 5, demilitarization of Gaza. Hamas and other militant groups must surrender and destroy all weapons, tunnels, rockets, and weapons production sites under international supervision. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't trust Hamas, but I'm glad the president is giving it everything he can. Number 6, verification and monitoring. A neutral international monitoring body will verify compliance and report violations to the Board of Peace. Number 7, weapons buyback program. A fund will pay Gazans to turn in weapons voluntarily, aiming to disarm fighters without further bloodshed. That can go good or bad. I mean, we are pumping money into them, but I understand he's got to broker a deal. Amnesty for those who disarm. Former Hamas fighters who surrender weapons and renounce violence will receive amnesty and be eligible for reintegration programs. Number 9, safe passage option. Hamas members refusing to comply can leave Gaza safely for other nations willing to accept them. Number 10, transitional governance. A technocratic, nonpartisan Palestinian committee composed of vetted Gazan leaders and international advisors will temporarily govern Gaza. Number 11, International Oversight Board. A board of peace chaired by Donald Trump and including regional partners Tony Blair, haven't heard that name in a long time, will oversee reconstruction and political reform. Number 12, International Stabilization Force, ISF. A multinational peacekeeping force drawn from Arab and international contributors will secure borders, prevent smuggling, and maintain order. Number 13, humanitarian aid surge. Water, electricity, food, medical aid, and debris removal will resume immediately, coordinated by the UN and Red Crescent under neutral control. 14, Rafah crossing reopened. The Gaza-Egypt border of Rafah will reopen for aid delivery and civilian passage under neutral international management. Number 15, economic reconstruction plan. A new Gaza initiative will rebuild infrastructure, roads, hospitals, and schools, launching a special economic zone with tax and trade incentives. Number 16, non-displacement clause. No Gazans will be forcibly relocated. Those who left voluntarily retain the right to return after stabilization. So let me ask the radical left. Is President Trump really trying to do a purge, an ethnic cleansing? Number 17, Israel's gradual withdrawal. Israel will pull forces back in phases as Gaza's security and governance stabilize, retaining a temporary parameter until demilitarization is complete. Number 18, exclusion of Hamas from power. Hamas is barred from political participation or governance roles, though individuals renouncing the group may join civics programs. Number 19, political pathway. Once the Palestinian Authority completes reforms and is deemed stable, Gaza governance will transition back under a reform PA, opening the door to renewed peace talks. Number 20, implementation without Hamas consent. If Hamas refuses the plan, Israel and international partners can implement the humanitarian and governance portions in areas outside Hamas control. So I think it's genius. There's certain things that wouldn't be exactly the way I would do it, but I understand when you're brokering deals, you don't always get what you want. I think it's ingenious. Also, just for the grifters on the right, so-called right, which are nothing more than reprobates, I don't know, Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson's, and I allege what they're saying, even though they're making it pretty clear what they believe. They want to, Candace Owens is out there saying Donald Trump is Putin, or it's not Putin's puppet, that's the radical left's talking point, that he's Bibi's puppet and that he's fighting Bibi's wars. And even though when you look at this, they want to say that they're trying to push for ethnic cleansing. They want to get rid of all the Palestinians in Gaza. They just want to ethnic cleanse them all. When President Donald Trump is the one that's calling the shots, it's not Bibi, it's President Donald Trump. And he's actually holding Israel off from going in there and annihilating them, which they should desire to annihilate them on the basis of what happened on October 7th. They should want to go in there and eliminate the threat so that their women doesn't get raped again, so their children aren't beheaded again, so they're not being attacked like they were attacked. And as a matter of fact, these are the same ones that want to say these are not real Jews, and yet they won't deny the history of that, the fact that Adolf Hitler was committing the Holocaust on the Jewish people. So I want to know, if they were Jewish in World War II, when did they not become Jewish? When did that change happen? So they're grifters on the right that complete want to lie and push and peddle conspiracy theories for clickbait. When Donald Trump is trying to bring peace to the Middle East, he's doing the very best he can, and I support the president. I'm glad he's trying to bring peace to the Middle East, and I'm glad he's trying to bring peace to Portland and Chicago. And I'm sorry that the governor of Illinois is a dummy with no extreme disrespect. I pray for our leaders, but it's super ignorant what he's trying to do when he's trying to push lawlessness in the streets, and he's trying to fight against the one that's trying to bring law and order. And the only reason he's doing this is he's allowing citizens and ICE agents to be hurt because he wants to go wildly in the face of President Trump because he wants to be the next president of the United States. That's all that's about. Is he's just pushing this to go wildly in the face of President Trump to say, look how strong I am. I'm the strongest Democrat there is. I go against that mean, bad orange man with too many red ties. Because all he wants to do is try to show people that he's willing to go up against Donald Trump so he can become the next president of the United States, and he's selling out the citizens of this great state. He's selling out the people of Chicago, and he's allowing them to be harmed, and he's allowing lawlessness to be in the streets, and he's fighting against the one that wants to crack down on crime. Well, that's about all the time we have today. I know the government is still shut down. We'll probably talk about that tomorrow, unless there's more chaos trying to uproot our republic. But until then, we pray that the republic doesn't burn down. And if it doesn't burn down overnight, I will see you tomorrow. America, I love you. God bless you.